Think about this for a second. There is not a single verse in the entire Bible where Jesus is sick. Not one. No mention of him catching a cold, running a fever, suffering from exhaustion, dealing with a stomach illness. Nothing. Zero. And this is a man who lived without hospitals, without medicine, without clean running water, without refrigeration. He slept on hillsides. He traveled constantly in scorching Middle Eastern heat. He surrounded himself with crowds of sick people every single day, lepers, people with infectious diseases, people suffering from every kind of ailment you can imagine, and somehow in 33 years of living in those conditions, the Bible never records Jesus being ill even once. Now you can take that as miraculous if you want. That is completely fair, but here is the part that most people never think about. What was this man actually putting into his body every single day? Because what he ate was completely different from what you are eating right now, completely different from what I eat. And when you look at the specific foods he consumed in first century Galilee, the science behind those foods is genuinely jaw-dropping. Modern researchers are spending enormous amounts of money studying the exact same ingredients that Jesus ate as a completely normal part of daily life 2,000 years ago. So today we are going to walk through his actual diet. Not what we imagine, not what looks good in a painting, but what historical records, biblical text, and archaeology actually tell us he was eating. And I promise you, some of this is going to genuinely surprise you. Let's start at the very beginning of his day. When Jesus woke up in the morning, the first food he almost certainly encountered was bread. But stop right there, because the word bread means something completely different when we are talking about first century Judea versus what that word means today. The bread you are probably eating right now has been processed, bleached, enriched with synthetic vitamins to replace the ones that processing stripped out, loaded with preservatives to extend shelf life, and engineered to be as soft and appealing as possible. That bread does very little good for your body. In fact, research consistently shows that highly processed white bread causes rapid spikes in blood sugar, followed by crashes that leave you tired, hungry, and foggy. Jesus never touched anything like that. The bread in his world was made primarily from barley. Barley was the grain of common people, of working people, of the poor, and Jesus was poor. He grew up in Nazareth, a humble town in Galilee, in a family of modest means. When the Gospels describe the miracle of feeding 5,000 people, it is 5 barley loaves that get multiplied. Not wheat, barley. Because that is what the people around him were eating. And barley is genuinely remarkable from a nutritional standpoint. It has one of the lowest glycemic indexes of any grain on earth, meaning it releases its energy extremely slowly into the bloodstream. No spike, no crash, just a long, steady, consistent supply of fuel hour after hour. That is exactly what you need when you are walking long distances in heat, teaching for hours, engaging in physical labor. Barley also contains beta-glucan, a specific type of soluble fiber that research has shown actively reduces LDL cholesterol, the kind that clogs arteries and causes heart disease. Every morning, that barley bread was quietly doing cleanup work inside the bloodstream. And beyond that, barley feeds the beneficial bacteria living in the gut, the microbiome that scientists are increasingly recognizing as one of the most important factors in overall health, immune function, mental clarity, energy levels, and disease resistance. One humble food doing 3 major jobs simultaneously, and for Jesus it was simply breakfast. Now, alongside that bread, and frequently soaked right into it, was olive oil. If you want to understand the ancient Mediterranean world, you have to understand just how central olive oil was to absolutely everything. It was food, it was medicine, it was fuel for lamps, it was used for skincare and cleaning. The very landscape Jesus walked through was defined by olive trees. The Mount of Olives, the hill he crossed repeatedly traveling in and out of Jerusalem, was named for its ancient olive groves. The Garden of Gethsemane, where he spent his final night before the crucifixion, where he prayed until he sweat drops of blood, its name in Aramaic literally translates to oil press. This was not metaphorical. Olive oil was woven into the fabric of daily existence in that world. Jesus would have consumed it every single day, dipping his bread in it, having it poured over cooked food, using it in preparation of almost every meal. And what does that daily consumption of olive oil actually do to the human body? The research accumulated over the last several decades is frankly extraordinary. Extra virgin olive oil contains oleocanthal, a compound that works in the body in a way that is remarkably similar to ibuprofen. It reduces inflammation throughout the body systematically. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be an underlying driver of almost every major disease we are dealing with as a society: heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, arthritis. Olive oil was fighting all of that every single day, meal after meal. Beyond inflammation, the polyphenols and antioxidants in olive oil protect cells from oxidative damage, which is essentially the biological process of aging. The Mediterranean diet, which is built largely around olive oil, is consistently ranked as one of the most beneficial dietary patterns ever studied for longevity and brain health. People who consume olive oil regularly show slower cognitive decline, better cardiovascular outcomes, lower rates of depression. Jesus was getting all of this not because he knew the science, but simply because it was the food of his land. And then there is the fish. Jesus grew up right on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. The disciples closest to him, the men he spent the most time with, the people he chose to build his entire ministry around, were fishermen. Peter and Andrew were fishermen. James and John were fishermen. These men were pulling fish out of that lake constantly. Fish was not an occasional treat in this world. It was a staple. It was reliable, abundant, affordable protein that appeared at meals regularly. The Gospels reference fish repeatedly, not just as a symbol, but as actual food being prepared and consumed. After the resurrection, when Jesus appears to his disciples on the beach, he is cooking fish over a fire. That detail matters. It tells you something about the ordinary rhythms of his life. Fish was simply what you ate. And fish, particularly the small freshwater fish of the Sea of Galilee, is one of the most nutrient-dense foods that exists on Earth. It provides complete protein, meaning all the essential amino acids the body needs to repair and build tissue. This is clean, lean protein without the inflammatory saturated fat that comes with heavy red meat consumption. But beyond the protein, the genuine superpower of fish lies in its omega-3 fatty acids. Your body absolutely requires omega-3s to function properly, and it cannot manufacture them internally. You have to get them from food. What do omega-3s do? They reduce systemic inflammation, they protect joint tissue, they support heart function, they are literally structural components of brain cell membranes. A diet consistently high in omega-3s is associated with lower rates of depression, better cognitive performance, reduced risk of heart disease, and dramatically better joint health. Jesus walked on rocky, uneven terrain every single day of his adult life. He climbed hills, he traveled long distances on foot repeatedly. His joints should have taken a beating, but omega-3s from regular fish consumption were providing ongoing protection against exactly that kind of physical wear. Now, here is something that might genuinely stop you cold. After the resurrection, when Jesus appears to his disciples in a closed room, they are terrified because they think they are seeing a ghost. And Jesus, to prove that he is physically real, asks them for something to eat. What do they give him? Broiled fish and honeycomb. He eats honey directly from the comb. One of the very last foods mentioned in connection with Jesus in the Gospels is raw honey. And honey is not merely a sweetener. Honey is one of the most extraordinary substances in the natural world from a biological standpoint. Raw honey has natural antimicrobial properties so powerful that bacteria cannot survive in it. Pathogens that have developed resistance to modern antibiotics are still killed by honey. This was understood in ancient cultures long before anyone knew what bacteria were. The Egyptians used honey to pack wounds and prevent infection. They preserved food in it. They treated illness with it. And it works. Raw honey also contains prebiotics that feed the beneficial bacteria in the gut. Remember how barley was feeding those same gut bacteria? Honey was doing that too, reinforcing the same internal ecosystem, building what you might think of as a fortress of beneficial microbes in the digestive system that helps keep harmful pathogens from gaining a foothold. When Jesus wanted something sweet, this was his option. Not refined sugar, not processed candy, not high fructose corn syrup. Honey straight from the comb, and his immune system benefited every single time. In addition to bread, oil, fish, and honey, the diet of first century Galilee included an enormous abundance of legumes. Lentil stew was genuinely one of the most common meals in the ancient Near East. Cheap, filling, and nutritionally dense, lentils are packed with plant-based protein, complex carbohydrates, iron, and folate. They also contain prebiotic fiber. Alongside lentils, garlic, and onions were used constantly in cooking, and both of these are now well documented as having genuine antimicrobial and immune-boosting properties. Allicin, the compound that gives garlic its sharp smell, has demonstrated antibacterial effects that researchers continue to study. A bowl of lentil stew with garlic and onions was genuinely medicinal food, not because the people eating it thought of it that way, but because the earth produced these things and the human body responds to them powerfully. Then there are the fruits of the land. The land of Israel has been described across multiple biblical texts as a land of abundance, and the fruits mentioned specifically, figs, dates, grapes, pomegranates, all of them carry remarkable nutritional profiles. Figs provide natural sugars for energy along with significant calcium and digestive fiber. Dried figs were perfect travel food, lightweight and calorie-dense, easy to carry on long walks between towns. Dates are extraordinarily concentrated in natural sugars and potassium. That potassium piece is critical because potassium is the mineral that keeps muscles functioning properly during sustained physical activity and maintains steady heart rhythm. On long walks in brutal sun, your potassium levels matter enormously. Grapes, whether eaten fresh or dried into raisins, contain resveratrol and other polyphenol compounds that protect the cardiovascular system and reduce cellular aging. And pomegranates, which are carved into the architecture of the temple in Jerusalem reflecting their cultural and symbolic importance, are among the most antioxidant-rich foods that grow anywhere on Earth. They actively reduce arterial plaque, lower blood pressure, and fight oxidative damage at the cellular level. Research into pomegranate compounds continues to produce impressive results. The ancients respected this fruit, and the science completely vindicates them. And then there is wine. This is not a theological debate, and we are not going to make it one. The Gospels are clear. Jesus drank wine. His very first recorded miracle was producing wine at a wedding in Cana. The Last Supper included wine. He drank it at meals throughout his life. But first-century wine was not the high-alcohol bottled wine you find on modern store shelves. It was typically diluted heavily with water, sometimes 1 part wine to 2 or even 3 parts water. This was partly practical. Water in the ancient world was frequently unsafe to drink because of bacterial contamination. Diluting it with wine killed those bacteria and made it safer. But even in that diluted form, the wine was delivering compounds from grape skins, including resveratrol and other polyphenols, that research has linked to cardiovascular protection, lower blood pressure, reduced inflammation, and longer overall lifespan. Now step back and look at all of this together. In a single ordinary day, Jesus was consuming barley bread for sustained energy and gut health, olive oil for inflammation reduction and brain protection, fish for lean protein and omega-3s, honey for immune strength and antimicrobial defense, lentils with garlic and onions for protein and natural antibiotics, multiple fruits for antioxidants and cellular repair, and diluted wine for heart protection. Every single item on that list was whole, unprocessed, and came directly from the natural world. Not one of them required a manufacturing facility. Not one had a list of ingredients. Not one had been engineered in a laboratory. And together they formed something that functioned like a complete biological defense system, a diet that addressed energy, immunity, cardiovascular health, brain function, joint protection, gut health, and cellular longevity simultaneously. Now, here's the part that should genuinely make you uncomfortable. Every single food on that list is still available today, right now. You could walk into almost any grocery store and find barley, extra virgin olive oil, fresh fish, raw honey, lentils, garlic, figs, dates, pomegranates, and grapes. All of it is there. It has always been there. and most of us walk straight past it. We reach instead for the processed bread, the chips, the soda, the frozen dinners, the fast food, the candy, the snacks that come in colorful packaging with long ingredient lists full of things that did not exist a century ago, let alone 2,000 years ago. And our bodies are showing exactly what that choice costs us. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in the developed world. Type 2 diabetes affects hundreds of millions of people. Obesity rates have climbed to levels that would have been incomprehensible to any ancient population. Chronic pain, persistent fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, depression, digestive disorders, these are the defining health experiences of modern life. And researchers who study the history of disease consistently note that many of these conditions were remarkably rare in ancient populations that ate the way Jesus ate. Jesus did not have a nutritionist. He did not have a fitness tracker. He did not follow a named diet program or track his macros or subscribe to a meal kit service. He ate what the land around him produced. He ate with the people he loved at shared tables in community with gratitude. And the body that diet built walked across an entire region, taught and debated and healed, endured physical conditions that would break most modern people within days and never, not once according to any record we have, got sick. There is something worth sitting with in that, not a complicated lesson, not an expensive one. The foods that sustained one of the most physically resilient human beings ever recorded still exist. They are sitting in stores right now, largely ignored. Barley instead of white flour, olive oil instead of processed vegetable oils, fish instead of processed meat, raw honey instead of refined sugar, lentils and legumes instead of fast food, seasonal fruit instead of candy. These are not exotic choices, they are ancient ones. And 2,000 years of human history, plus a rapidly growing body of modern nutritional science, both point in exactly the same direction. The earth made the food built the body. Maybe the most profound health revolution available to you right now is not a new supplement or a new workout program or a new diet book. Maybe it is something older, much older. Maybe it is simply eating the way a carpenter from Nazareth ate while he was changing the world. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone you care about. The information has been sitting in a 2,000-year-old book this whole time. We just stopped reading it with eyes wide open.